Our next speaker is Catrina Melograna. Ms. Malograna is a Leiden University Air and Space Masters of Law student, a creative thinker, strategist, researcher, and problem solver with a diverse experience in law and business. She recently graduated from International Space University's Space Studies program in Strasbourg, France, where she was the first in her class of 120 students from over 30 countries studying all aspects of the space industry, including engineering, applications, and space sciences with a focus in law and policy. Ms. Malograna thrives in multicultural and multidisciplinary environments, taking on leadership roles and managing time-sensitive projects. She is a cross-disciplinary communicator and partnership client relationship builder, as well as an artist, musician, and as a globetrotter with a love of all things space. Hi, Catrina.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me okay?
You sound amazing. The screen is yours, which, by the way, Catrina, you're going to be talking about workforce development, law, and policy, which is really exciting.
Well, yeah, I was asked, so my presentation is going to be a little bit different. It's going to be about my journey to become a space lawyer and getting into space law and policy. So it's going to be where I came from, where I'm going, and some takeaways from that as part of the infrastructure and career development part of the space industry.
Awesome. Can't wait.
So I won't be talking so much about law and policy yet.
No, perfect. This is actually really important because this might be something that it might be very influential for a lot of people, which is a very recurring thing and what we're trying to talk about when it comes to educating.
Yes, I'm hoping so. I'm hoping my story can reach some people, show that you can have a non-traditional space background and get into space. Great segue. Space is for everyone. Wherever you come from, whatever you've been doing, whatever you're doing right now, you can get into it, and that's really what I want my story that I'm about to share to show, and then maybe some, like I said, some takeaways, maybe some tips for the industry itself. And my presentation's very light. I'm keeping it light and fun, and then I'll be happy to answer the questions that you have.
I don't know if you were on the event yesterday, which, as I've already mentioned, a very key component is why we're going to small cities like Scranton, Pennsylvania, and what our initiatives there are, which is to pretty much ask ourselves, how can a city like Scranton, Pennsylvania, or Akron, Ohio, cities like that, leverage the opportunities of a new space economy? What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, I think it's great. I mean, I actually went to law school in Pittsburgh.
Oh, you did? Okay, so not too far.
Yeah. So I really do love hearing about initiatives to bring it to smaller places. The future is, oh, great. Michael has it up. The future is going to be everywhere in the States, not in just those select cities that maybe have manufacturing or just launching. And we're going to have we need all the brain power we can get all over the country, diversify innovation. There's going to be so much of it where we have to spread out, I think. So I just love the idea. I'm glad you guys are starting that ball rolling.
Very true. So for everybody listening, just keep that in the back of your mind. You know, Catrina's here. She's going to be talking more about her roots and how she became a space lawyer. So Catrina, as you go through, just let us know whenever you want us to go into the next slide, okay?
Thanks. I'll just say next. Thanks. All right. So, well, can you go back to the opening screen? I'll explain that one a little better. Really, my presentation is just some fun pictures I had of my life, not growing up, but when I started my education. So I will start a little bit earlier. Like I said, what I'm here to tell you about my story, where I'm going, how I'm getting here. So I'll start with when I was little, my grandfather used to tell my sister and I stories about the night sky. He would show us constellations. He would we'd look at the telescope. He was an amateur astronomer, and he was a retired aerospace engineer. He actually worked at Martin Marietta before it became Lockheed Martin. Now, space was a little bit a part of my childhood in that way. My sister and I were really fascinated, but despite that, I didn't go into anything space related. It wasn't a big part of my life as I got older. So I graduated. I went to Louisiana State University. I graduated in 2003 in theatrical design and technology. I was a stagehand. I did lighting. I did some acting before that, but no space, not yet. So the next slide. This was my typical office. I don't know if you can tell, but I'm in a lift way above a stage, and those are the theater seats out there. So that's what I did for a while. Then I got into, after this, I got into more of a corporate job. I was doing administrative assistant type work, still no space. Then I discovered an interest in law and helping people. And so I decided to go to law school, and I went to law school at Duquesne University in Pittsburgh. And I graduated in 2011. You can go to the next. You can see when you graduate, you get a giant diploma. So that was great. But still no space. After law school, I clerked for a judge. I worked in a variety of different law firms, primarily litigation defense in the civil realm. I first started doing actually medical malpractice and healthcare. As you can see, so I also am licensed, was sworn in to 3 different states. So I have here Pennsylvania, California, and Washington State. And I just wanted to let everybody in on a trade secret that this looks official, but to be a lawyer, you have to take a picture in front of a bunch of books. So if you go to the next one, there, finally made it to being a lawyer.
No idea about that.
Yeah. Lots of lawyers take pictures in front of books, so here we are. So what I was realizing, this kind of lifestyle, this stuff isn't for me. There's just a lot of hours in an office and at a desk. I was like, what am I chasing? I'm chasing something, but still no space. So next slide. I got married in the meantime, somewhere in there, and my husband's a filmmaker and a photographer, and we thought it would be fun to try astrophotography. And so this is a picture I took a couple years ago outside of Arizona. You can see the Milky Way. Fascinating, right? Really started like actually making vacation choices on where we could go take night sky photography. Of course, we discovered so many galaxies in our in our photography. But then I'm still working at law firms. Still no real not space was not a huge part, just this photography. So next slide, please. Took a trip to Mauna Kea in Hawaii. And I did an astronomy tour, did some night sky photography. There was a moment where I was looking across the valley and I could see the High Seas analog mission. Now that's where they do off-world analog missions just pretty much constantly. I'd never seen anything like that before, and our guide was telling us about it. And something sounds cliche, but actually clicked in my brain. And I thought, and I was looking where I was, and I was like, space is what I've been chasing. This is the thing. And that was great. But what do I do next? How do I okay, cool. Now what? So I did a lot of research. You can go to the next slide, please. A lot of research. I was trying to figure out, okay, I'm going to be an astronomer. I'm going to go back to school. I started studying some math, brushing off the algebra books, and realizing how daunting that was to start over after having gone through undergrad, law school, years of law, of being a lawyer. So I found, but I will say I was ready to be an astronomer. Next slide. I was.
I just quick posted the link to High Seas because it's pretty amazing site. So I went off.
I haven't let that dream go. One day I'll be the first lawyer analog astronaut.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, they're looking for people. You know, it's run by a bunch of ISUers, right?
Yes. Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
All right. Good.
Yes. So yeah, here I am, basically being an astronomer at the Very Large Array, channeling my best Jodie Foster. Well, so yes, so what I ended up finding was a place called International Space University. They happen to have a week-long program that was a pretty intense but introductory course into space, all things space. International Space University, if you haven't heard of it, is incredibly interdisciplinary, multicultural. You're from all over the, people come from all over the world. So I took this program. This is where I met Michael Lane and learned about the space elevator, and made really great friends and networked, and realized, okay, not finished with this. I'm going to go do the intense 9-week program in Strasbourg, France. So you can, next slide, please. So I went to France. I did the program. I got the opportunity to work with on a heliophysics mission. We designed a heliophysics mission for NASA. You can see this is a very flattering picture of Dr. Jacob Cohen, who's the chief scientist of NASA Ames. who was our leader. I got to participate in Space Moot Court, which was very cool. Next slide. I went into the program. I was excited, but I was pretty nervous about my abilities, my education. I was surrounded by engineers and people who had been working in the industry. There were a lot of newcomers like me too, but it was a little intimidating. What was cool is I really felt like I put in the work and I shined. I won the best advocate at Moot Court. There I am with now my professor, Tanya Mason-Zwan. And then I also got the highest academic achievement award of the program, which was incredible. Thank you. And what it did on top of having me learn all of these things is I gained a confidence that I didn't have. And I also gained a network, right? Which is incredibly important. So don't go to the next slide yet, please. I have to explain. So I came back from ISU, and I was looking for jobs, and I was collaborating with some classmates on space companies. And will you time check me at like 5 minutes? Just I haven't actually paid attention yet, if you don't mind. So thank you. So I had these great plans, and then the pandemic hit, and I really had to reevaluate, reassess, rethink everything, what I was going to do. So with I thought, I'm going to go back to school. This is the time to do it. And I really wanted to go be Tanya's Dr. Mason-Zwan, or Tanya Mason-Zwan's student. So I applied for that, but with the encouragement of my husband and his awesome Photoshop skills, which you can see on the next slide, I decided to apply for Leiden. Yeah.
It is amazing.
Yeah. Got a lot of these from him. So, well, I did not.
I know Inara over there is so, like, she's just getting her life right now because she talked about how much Star Trek is such a huge thing in her family. So for a lot of us, it is. So
yes. So this was cool to see, right? I was like, oh, I could be a captain. Yes, I applied for Leiden and I got in. And I was so excited. So that's where I am now. It's been, you can go to the next slide. It's been quite a year. I have traveled back and forth between the Netherlands due to COVID. There were a lot of restrictions and I had to stay adaptable. I'm back in Seattle right now. But it's been a really interesting and cool year. But what I really wanted to say is that I was going to say I'm going to have an internship this summer in space policy in Washington D.C., which is really cool. I'm on track to do the thing that I want, which is space law and policy, being a space lawyer, a policymaker, being in the making. And but what I just wanted to touch on is some takeaways from this whole experience and the things that I'm experiencing now, and I know I'll keep experiencing. So what I wanted to say is, and this is for everybody, this is for people trying to do it, and this is for the people in the companies that are hiring the people. There's a lot of people like me that come from very non-traditional backgrounds, but there's something about space that really attracts curious and eclectic people, and it's a really cool company to be in, and I'm happy about that. As a child, I could have, through high school, I could have been exposed more to applications of math and science that would have gotten me probably more interested in something, like if I had gotten hands-on, some kind of engineering or some kind of astronomy or robotics. I didn't have that in any school that I went to. It would have been good to have mentors earlier on, through high school, college. I wasn't aware of any programs or anything like that in any of the schools that I went to. I think that law schools could do a better job of telling students that they can do something that's not being a lawyer. They did tell us that once in law school, and we all kind of chuckled. And so it would have been cool to see that in practice and have just more hands-on with that. A big thing for me has been the difficulty of changing mid-level. So a lot of, it's cool, you know what you want to do when you're 8 years old, and that's what you do. But what happens if you realize what you want to do and you've already been doing the thing that you do for so many years? How do you transition? There aren't so I'll say the reasons I found for this is, one, you get pigeonholed into the job that you've had, especially as a lawyer. You get like pigeonholed into the type of law that you do. And it's really hard to get out of this. It means often pay cuts, like starting from scratch, and a lot of people can't do that, right? Because they've got families, they've got financial obligations, student debt. And I didn't see any programs that really assist with this. When I got out of ISU, I was applying for jobs, and the feedback I was getting is, well, you don't have any experience in this type of law or this company. And it would have been nice to have an internship or some sort, but I didn't have access to that because I wasn't a student. So what was I going to do? I'm in a position, I was really lucky I got to go back to school. That's what I'm doing. I get to have an internship and hopefully get that experience. But what if I couldn't do that? What would I do? So there needs to be some sort of like way for mid-level people or high career, or like people later in their career, some kind of way for them to switch that isn't just completely starting from scratch. Maybe some kind of reimagined internship or co-op for people. People like me in the legal field, especially, it just seems unnecessary to have this very specific type of experience if you want to get into the industry. We have skills and other kinds of experience. It's often interdisciplinary that would really benefit the space industry. So sometimes the job would just require us learning new kind of laws. So I was like newsflash to people who don't know, lawyers have to learn new laws like every day. I would be working on a case where I'd have to become an expert in like what kind of nails you would use because I did construction defect law, what kind of nails you'd have to use for a residential house, and basically become an expert in that. And then the next day I have to learn how HVAC system engineering works and how you test for that. And then on the next case, I'm a shellfish species expert. So the ability of some of these lawyers to like pivot and flip and like learn new things, that's awesome. We know how to do that. So it seems like that should be a benefit to a company. But I mean, it just looks like a lot of companies aren't looking at that. That's the experience I've gotten. So what I see is you've got this huge pool of smart, excited people, right? Not just like, oh, I want to switch careers, but like passionate people usually that want to get into space. And it's an untapped resource. So what are you going to do? The companies and these programs need to realize that and go after some of that talent, I think, and encourage it and look a little further than just like the jobs that I've had on my resume and the titles that I've had. And you could get this group of talented space enthusiasts that I say are working for the weekend, and get them into the industry that they're passionate about. So again, to kind of tie this up, I'm really focused on the now, of course. There's a lot of people now talking about bringing up the future generation of space industry leaders, and how do we do that? How do we start kids from a young age to get interested in that? The Aerospace Corporation just came out with a paper on this called Developing Future Space Workers, Leadership Needed Today. It's a good article. If you're interested in that, go read it. But for me, I'm coming from the position of like, I want to work in space now. So anyway, I'm hopeful that companies are going to start to see this more as a benefit and not a stop sign. And but anyway, thank you so much for listening to my story. It was fun to share, and I'm here for whatever you guys throw at me.
Yeah, you mentioned
with boundaries.
Of course. You mentioned that lawyers pretty much have to learn a new law pretty much every single day. We actually had Michelle Hanlon in last month's, pretty much said a lot of the laws here on Earth don't apply to space. It's a different spectrum altogether. Some of them just don't necessarily apply because it's completely different. So doing that, I think it's very interesting, because we're going to have to pretty much make new laws for space because it's a different environment. One quick question that Lila said, she's like, I'd like your top 5 list for night sky photography locations, which is pretty much interesting because some of those that you took were phenomenal.
Thanks. Yeah, anywhere you can find an internationally certified dark sky. So Arizona, of course, is Arizona and New Mexico are really great places for that. So all over the place. We went, that one was taken outside of Petrified Forest, the national park. It's just stretches of nothing. Hawaii, we just recently did some up at the bottom of Mauna Kea. When you get the clouds to clear, it's a great place to take pictures. So I'd say anywhere, Arizona, New Mexico, and Hawaii.
Yeah, because Hawaii is kind of cloudy sometimes.
It's really cloudy, but if you can catch it, and you're closer to where the observatories are, it's dark. No,
very much. I saw a couple of people who mentioned it here. Sedona and Flagstaff, which is one that Inara suggested.
Nice.
Yeah, so Space for All mentioned, or they asked, is space law different to normal laws? How are they enforced, and is there space police?
So, that is a huge question, and that is why people go to school for years. So I can't answer that all at once, unfortunately. What I actually have learned is where there are laws, the international laws, they're not that different. It's the laws draw analogies. Of course, you're working in completely different environments, where people aren't really hanging out. So that's where they need to adapt. But there are a set of international space laws, treaties, that have been around since the 60s, and we are still abiding by those. And they incorporate international law. And we have a lot of those. And then each country can write their own laws, but if you're a party to the treaties, you have to abide by the principles of the treaties. So I think that's the shortest answer I can give you on that one.
No, yeah, definitely. And Richard actually said that he was surprised that there isn't a greater call and support encouragement for space law given the recent drives for space infrastructure development.
Oh, there is.
There is? Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. There's a lot of us. I mean, I attend as many webinars as I can, which everybody knows in this day and age is, about 1 million. But There's a ton of them. There's one for I think the United States Space Command has a whole legal, their first legal symposium or conference. I think it starts today. And so that's their first one. And that's just all, I think, going to be law and policy and DoD stuff. But I attend things that are mostly international, and which is great. And they're conversations, and it's policymakers, and it's scientists, and it's people in the industry, and we're all coming together, and we're all having dialogues. Actually, the one in particular I'm talking about are the moon dialogues. And we're talking about how we're going to go forward and how we're going to do this sustainably and equitably and all of that. And that's all includes policy and law. So lots of people are talking about it. Lots of people are working on it. The hard part is it mostly can get done most easily domestically in your country, right? The big picture international treaty stuff can take years and years, and that's always being worked on. I think some of the treaties took 10 years to finalize and get people to sign, and not everybody signs them. So it's a struggle in that sense. But I will assure you that lots of people are working on it. And it's a big thing. Like there's people like here where people want to take ideas to the Congress or to Washington, D.C. to get the laws passed. Like people are trying to do this in different areas.
Yeah, definitely. Very last, because we're already at that time, Carissa actually said, great presentation. I'm in law and looking to jump back into the space sector, which your story is so inspiring. So again, for all the kids out there in small communities where Tim is at, like in Scranton, this is a very inspirational story, one of many. And we continue to hear them in events like Blue Marble Week, now Conversations for the Future, which is our main goal, is to continue to plan for the future. So Catrina, thank you so much for talking on your inspirational roots, where you start off, which wasn't exactly space, but now you're here. So you're part of the conversations, which is what we're trying to do. And it really doesn't matter, who you are, where you're from, or whatever it is. If you have a space love for space, then this is the kind of conversations that we should be having. These are the kind of webinars, the kind of events that we should be participating in. So Catrina, if you can, just go ahead and drop in your LinkedIn information on the chat here so we can continue networking for this event. And thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll do that after I get off here. But thank you so much for having me. It was really fun. And yes, find me on LinkedIn. I'm happy to chat about this and inspire anyone to get into the field and whatever they're doing right now. We need the diversity. We need the ideas. I think all of this is innovation, right? Like that's coming from different sectors and different backgrounds. We need it.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, maybe one day me, you, and Nara, and a bunch of us will see each other at some Star Trek convention. So
I count on it.
Thank you so much, Kate.
Thank you.
Thank you.